Hey, look what I got in front of me. I've got two laptops. Now, the A+ exams ask a lot of questions about laptops, which are, in my opinion, really kind of basic. But never be said that Mike Myers doesn't cover everything on the CompTIA A+, so we're going to hit them right here. Now, so in this episode, what I call Touring the Laptop, we're just going to go over some of the basic aspects of your general laptop so that you know them for the exam. So what I've got in front of me are two laptops. Now, this one right here is a very late generation laptop. It's got a very high-end Intel processor, tons of RAM. It's got a SSD instead of a regular hard drive. So this is a pretty cool high-end system. Now this system here, he's pretty old. I still use him like crazy, but this is a much older system, not nearly as much RAM. It's got an old school rotational media hard drive in it, but it's pretty good because I can open it up and show you stuff without panicking, whereas with this one, I'd be a little bit scared. So let's just do a quick little tour. Let's start going around these laptops and talking about stuff. Okay, first of all, what I want you to look at are the keyboards. So let me pick this one up here. And if you look at this keyboard, you'll see that it has an external numeric keypad, which is great. That's a handy thing. Now I want you to take a look at this one over here. Let me turn that for you. If you take a look at this guy, first of all, it doesn't have a numeric keypad. What it has, though, and can you look right in close, really close there, you can see that it does have a numeric keypad, but it's kind of built into the keyboard itself. And what's happening here is you need something called function keys. Now, function keys are specialized keys that will allow, by holding down a function button, allow them to do other things. For example, if I plug in a second monitor here, I would press a function key to say, go ahead and use that second monitor. I've got a function key to turn the brightness up or down, change the volume. It really depends on the system, but what's important is that function keys change functions. So I'm going to look at this guy right here, and first of all, I do see that I've got a function key right here. I better have a function key. Pretty much every laptop does. And then by holding this down, whatever is in blue is what's going to happen. So for example, if I want a numeric keypad with this old laptop, I hold down the function key and then suddenly all those letters start turning into numbers. And if I accidentally had the function key down and I press the letter U, I'd get a 4 instead. So not to say I've ever done that, but be aware that that happens. So function keys are important. And what the function keys are going to do varies from laptop to laptop, but make sure you're comfortable with the idea of what a function key is. Now the next thing I want to talk about are the monitors. When it comes to laptops, these days, and certainly for the A+, you're pretty much down to two technologies. There's the good old LCD technology, and then there's OLED. Now, both of these are LCDs. Now you got to be careful with LCDs. LCDs always have a backlight. Now that backlight could be a fluorescent, or what we call a CCFL, and this guy right here has two CCFL lamps built into the monitor itself. You can't see them, but it creates a backlight. This guy over here uses LEDs. So instead of these fluorescents, he uses these LEDs, which have a lot of big benefits. LEDs use a lot less power than CCFLs. LEDs can be brighter and they have a much longer life than CCFL. So when you're talking about LCD panels, a lot of times you'll hear people say, I've got an LED panel. Well, what they have is an LCD panel with LED backlights. The other option, and I don't have one unfortunately, is OLED. OLED has some really big benefits. It's much better contrast than LCD. It uses a lot less power, and it's just generally prettier. A lot of people do use OLED. You see it on a lot of smartphones and tablets these days. There are other technologies out there that are not covered on the A+, but keep those two in mind. Now, going back to LCD, you basically have two technologies. You have the old school twisted pneumatic, and then you have in-plane switching, so TN or IPS. Now, TN is like the oldest of the first generation of LCDs, and it worked through a very interesting technology where it actually twisted crystals, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it's been pretty much supplanted in the world of laptops with IPS. IPS is going to give you much better contrast than you'll see with TN. IPS is going to give you a much wider range of view and is generally preferred by most people. Now the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to monitors, and we can actually see the difference here, is a glossy versus a matte screen. This, if you want to get two nerds in a fight, talking about this can always be a big issue. You'll see a lot of these, and this has nothing to do whether it's LCD or OLED or TN versus IPS. It's just the shiny outside. So this one over here is very shiny. So this is what we call a glossy. And over here, it's not very shiny at all. And this is what we call a matte. M-A-T-T-E. Okay, so people get into a big discussion on this. A glossy is going to provide better contrast. It's going to give you more rich color, but it's going to give you glare. In fact, if I turn this monitor just right, I could totally light you up really good here. Matte screens will pretty much kill all the glare there is, but unfortunately, it comes at the cost of losing a lot of contrast. So people get into big opinions on this. Now, I need to warn you, when you're buying a laptop, it's not like you can sit there and go, I want that laptop with a glossy screen. It pretty much is based on the manufacturer's whims at any given moment as to what type of screen you're going to get. There are a few exceptions to that, but not very many. All right. The next thing I want to talk about are pointing devices. So basically, you've got a trackpad like this little guy right here. Now, trackpads are absolutely great, but your other option is you have a track point. And now these little pointing devices, I don't have one here. Can we get a picture of one of those up? There we go. So these types of devices basically have like a little eraser head that allows you to push them around. I haven't seen them in years. I'm not saying they aren't still out there, but I actually found it interesting that CompTIA even mentioned those, given that they are quite rare. Pretty much these days, it's all going to be a little touchpad or trackpad like this guy right here. A lot of people don't like these, and I'm going to say right now, the reason you don't like them is because you haven't taken the time to configure them. Every laptop has a little touchpad configuration screen that you can use to adjust, for example, sensitivity, the area that's being used, all kinds of stuff like that that make them a lot more usable. But I will say that those particular devices have made a lot of people come around and bring a mouse in their laptop bag. All right, so what I want to do now, let's go ahead and close this guy up. I'll close him up too. And I want to go inside the guts. Now, laptops are very, very maintainable. You can do a lot of stuff on the inside of a laptop. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop this guy open. Now, first of all, what I want to show you is that if you're going to be working on laptops, you're probably going to need some kind of tool set. Most of these laptops come with specialized screws, and without the right tool set, you're not going to get in. Anyway, there's actually only one screw on this guy, so I've got him popped open already. And what I want to do is kind of go through here a little bit and talk about some of the stuff that you're going to see on the inside of a laptop. And there's no better place to start than right here with good old RAM. Pretty much any laptop can easily have RAM added, replaced, whatever you need to do. This is an SO-DIMM on this particular guy. And it's trivial for me to go to the store. I can buy RAM with these SO-DIMMs. I'm going to have to check with the manufacturer to make sure that I've got the right type and the right speed, but it's easy, so easy to add RAM to a laptop. Now, moving down a little bit, here's my hard drive, and this is an old school rotational media drive. It's a SATA drive. Trivial for me to upgrade. If I want to put a bigger drive in there, it's just a matter of snapping him out and putting a bigger drive in. So it's actually very, very easy to do. Now, the other thing that's actually pretty easy to do, and I'm going to turn this just a little bit more. Can you guys get right in here? So what we're looking at here is Mini PCI Express. These are little tiny cards. In this case, what I have is a wireless card right here. And on this old laptop, and he's a great laptop, there's nothing wrong with him, but the wireless is still 802.11g. I can go to almost any store and get, for example, a new 802.11ac wireless card and pop it right in there. And as long as I have the right drivers for my OS, and Windows is pretty good about that on this machine, I can go ahead and just add a new wireless NIC. So it's actually very, very trivial. From here on in, things get a little bit trickier. For example, it's going to be really hard for you guys to see. Let me turn it. Right underneath here is my CPU. And Interestingly enough, this CPU is not soldered in. You see a lot of laptops have soldered CPUs. In this particular case, if I wanted to, I could put a new CPU in it, assuming that it would match whatever the form factor is, but you could actually replace it. Not for the faint of heart. I've done it a few times, but be aware that that option's there. As you might imagine, even on a desktop, it's bolted into a big system board. Now, system boards are surprisingly replaceable. I don't do it personally, mainly because to get the right system board for a particular laptop can often be challenging, but it can be done. If you've got a laptop you love that much, you might want to consider that. A few things that do get replaced a lot on this particular laptop, just because it's happened to me a few times, is right here. That's the primary cooling fan for this entire laptop. And on this particular model, this is a Dell laptop. These are a bit notorious for going out, and it's easy and trivial to get a replacement for it. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is this guy right here. This is my AC adapter. All right. Now, number one, you're going to have to get this guy charged. He runs on a battery, and this is how you charge him. AC adapters work great. Keep in mind that your laptop has a particular voltage and amperage that it wants, and you have to have the right AC adapter for that. Not only does it have to have the right voltage and amperage, it's going to have the right type of connector. So this is the type of power connector that comes with my Dells. I love Dells because even though they've gone through a number of different models of laptops over the years, they all still use an AC adapter with this one particular type of connection. Okay, so this was a pretty quick tour of a laptop. What's important here is that you're going to run into questions on the A+ that are going to ask you questions about how do function keys work. They're going to ask you questions about different types of monitors. Make sure you know this stuff, because you're going to see it on the exam.